Freaking out, man.
You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men with power want? More power.
My name is Gianluca Zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a drill. If you're listening to this broadcasting, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom.
We're not afraid.
Here we go, guys. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna. Another Sunday, another show, and another goal. My goal is very simple. I would like to have in every episode of this broadcasting the opportunity to meet, first of all, people that really inspired me to learn, to wake up in this new awakening, to save this republic called these United States, and also to share their experience, their information, their struggle, their journey with you. Hopefully they can inspire you, but more important, I hope they can give you the information that every one of you now, every one of us now has to do something. You know, when I was in Los Angeles, I came from Italy, 1998, I still remember, was the fall, 1998, October. I came with a visa. I didn't jump the fence. I went to the embassy, and I was very pleased. I was very excited, and I was very, humble at the same time to have the chance to be here. And I realized immediately, even in Los Angeles, even if I was living a little bit kind of a clueless at the time, that America was under attack. And I learned immediately, even as a fresh immigrant, I said, wow, sometimes I get lost in some part of town. I don't even understand where I am. I thought I was in America. I didn't think I was in China or I was in Mexico. And don't get me wrong, we're all from somewhere, and that's fine. But the first thing I wanted to do, even when I came to America, even with my limitations in my grammar, in my English, I wanted to try to speak English at least, even with my own faults. And I realized many people didn't want to do that, or at least you were almost an enemy, even if you were trying to do it. It may sound extreme, I don't think so. Unfortunately, history is proving us that we were right. And right there in Los Angeles, I learned this country is under attack. And the first symptoms I could see was the illegal immigration. It wasn't an immigration issue, it was an invasion issue. It was more than just people looking for jobs. No, unfortunately, it was a way created by the globalists, this elite, that they're working behind the scenes to destroy this republic, the last bastion of freedom, the last country that really they need to destroy to create on its ashes the new world order. That was what I learned. Among the people that really inspired me in this struggle to understand the danger of illegal invasion was one man. That, it's funny, everybody's trying to say, hey, you are a racist. They call me also an activist. I was featured in the Southern Poverty Law as an activist, and I was laughing. I wish I was born here. I was even an activist because I was born in Italy. But this guy, guess what? I don't think they can call him a racist because also he has a race that normally people like to paint, the minority. I don't believe in minority. I don't believe in majority. I believe that we're all Americans at the end of the day. But this is a great black man that I'm really proud to call my brother in freedom. His name is Tate Hayes. Tate, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir. Definitely. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank you. We never really talked much, but I was with you some of the rallies, and you always inspired me when I started to learn what you were doing and what you've been doing in your life on this planet. But before I go ahead and introduce you with some questions, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners to let you little bit yourself know who you are, what is your background, what you've been doing all this life on this planet, what you've been doing, who you are.
Okay, I'll try to capitalize that for you.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for inviting me to come on your broadcast and share with your listeners. It's a real honor because that's what I want to do. I want to share what I have learned with as many people as possible. I'm an activist for the homeless. I became homeless on purpose 30 years ago this year, living on the sidewalks in places like that for 8 years on the sidewalks, and then another 13 years in what we call the Dome Village. You can see the Dome Village if you like and see what that is. It was a special, innovative homeless shelter project called Dome Village. you can go to domevillage.us, domevillage.us. You can see that. But I became homeless on purpose so that I can understand it. I can feel it, smell it, taste it, understand it, see where it comes from, and examine or investigate whether there is a resolution to the matter. And I did. I found after many years of protest, demonstration, lobbying, and just talking to people and working hard and smartly, I've learned. I know what to do now. I'm very confident. I think I'm the nation's foremost homeless activist. At the same time, and that's because I have a plan. I've done something nobody in this country in its history has ever done. Left the home to go deliberately live with the poorest of the poor.
Wow.
To show, I mean, that's what Jesus Christ did, right? I mean, he went and he became homeless, and he said, go into the highways and byways, those are homeless people, and compel them into my house. And of course, Gandhi did the same thing. He became an untouchable to touch the untouchables.
Yeah.
So, touch them. So I figured I'll do the same thing, and it has paid off. And that's why I think I'm the nation's foremost activist, because I do have plans and answers to it. I'm also, before that, a civil rights activist, and it is my objective to bring about the healing of this chattel slave race wound in this country. They call America a nation of immigrants, which it is to a certain degree, but it's kind of a half truth, because my people, we're not immigrants. We so-called African Americans, we black people, what I call the descendants of chattel slaves and Jim Crow survivors. We did not ask to come into this country, but immigrants purchased us, brought us here to serve immigrants. And when I hear the president and other people in the media and whatnot say that America's a nation of immigrants and we all come from somewhere else, as immigrants, and that's not true, because if that is true, I want to know, who are we? And people say, well, I have pride in my immigrant heritage. People should have pride in their immigrant heritage. Absolutely correct. But what pride do I have as a descendant of chattel slaves? And it's almost like it's almost like we have been psychologically genocide in the minds of the American people. One time I was in Washington, D.C. at the White House, and there was about 70 black people in the room meeting with Condoleezza Rice. And she got up and she said, as she heard Mr. President, Mr. Bush say, this is the nation of immigrants. And so I raised my hand to speak to her, and she called upon me, and I told her how much I love her and appreciate her and defend her and also things like that. And I said, but ma'am, when you say that this is the nation of immigrants, it's rather offensive. It hurts me, because what am I? What are you? I said that, and I explained to her. She says, you're right about that. This is the nation of two great people, one slave and one free, and we must never forget that and must work to resolve that. So I as a civil rights activist, I want to bring healing in the country between us. And it's not a matter of black, if you know the history. It's a matter of immigrant people and the non-immigrant people. And later I'll tell you more about that. But there has to be healing between us if this nation is to save. Most immigrants, no fault of your own, most immigrants, when they come to the United States, they say they're coming looking for the American dream. But they really don't understand or know what the American dream is. In fact, if immigrants in other countries knew what the American dream really is, probably a lot of them would not come here.
Please, I want to learn, what is the American dream, according to Ted Hayes?
According to history, the American dream. Well, let me just say this first of all, before I go there. One of the things that, should the President of the United States finally hear what I'm saying and ask me, okay, loudmouth, what do you think we should do about the problem or the challenge of the black people and the white people, i.e. the immigrants and the slaves? I said, well, the first thing we need to do, Mr. President, is cost you no money. And every embassy, U.S. embassy throughout the country, along with regular history of what they're about to enter into, every candidate to be a citizen of the United States must understand the Civil War, what that is, what it means. Understand that, and the people around whom the Civil War was fought. And when people understand that, and they come to this country with that in mind, they will understand the true American dream. Because what is portrayed as the American dream right now, which is erroneous, is that you come to America for a better lifestyle. You come to America to get education, to have a family, to own a home, to become famous. I'm living the dream, they say. That's not why you come to America. Those things are consequences of coming to America. The first thing we must do when we come to America, we must help to fulfill the dream that one day America will rise up and live out its true meaning of its true creed, that all men are created equal, etc. You see, folks, when this country was born in 1776 on July the 4th, when we broke away from the British Crown, the British English Empire, we inherited not only the land and the goods and wonderful things about America, these 13 colonies, unfortunate destruction of the Native Americans, but we also inherited the institution of chattel slavery. And the founding fathers, if you read the Declaration of Independence, go back and read it slowly, it says that God basically is the central figure of the Declaration of Independence, the first law of our land. And they said in that Declaration of Independence that God created all men equally and endowed them all with certain alienable rights, and that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, meaning property. Unfortunately, when the Founding Fathers was railing against Mother England, a Judeo-Christian nation, about them being slaves to the crown, they hypocritically were holding other human beings, Americans, as living human property, slaves.
Yeah.
That is a contradiction in the Declaration of Independence. It's a contradiction in who and what America is, and it is a slap and an offense in the face of God. Now, I believe, from what I have studied, the Founding Fathers said that they would end slavery, and they did in 1889. As far as more ships coming into the country, they stopped that. And they said eventually they will free the slaves. Well, they didn't. So Thomas Jefferson said, if we do not rectify the issue of slavery and its generational aftermath, God, who is just, will punish this country. And sure enough, in 1860, the Civil War, 1861, the Civil War began. Immigrants of the South, American immigrants of the South, and American immigrants of the North killed each other, young, white, innocent white boys and men killed each other over this matter of black people as slaves in this country. Abraham Lincoln, halfway through the Civil War, came to understand that God brought this scourge upon this country because of slavery. And when he issued the Emancipation Proclamation declaring that these people shall be free according to the Declaration of Independence, that's when the favor of God came upon the Union, and they won the war, and the country remained the United States of America. Unfortunately, folks, after that war, when when people around the world, particularly out of Europe, looked across the ocean and saw, wow, look at what America is. They just fought a war with each other to elevate people who were slaves. Wow, if they could do that for slaves, imagine what they'll do for me. So I'm going to America. And as you notice, after the Civil War, we had this incredible boom in immigration in the country. And the immigrants came from Ireland, from England, from Scotland, Germany, Italy, and they came here. Unfortunately, folks, what happened, though, because the immigrants did not understand what the Civil War was about, they came, they got the jobs, they got housing over those of who were the slaves, upon whose back the nation of immigrants was built. The slaves can get housing, the slaves can get education, the slaves are being lynched by immigrants. People who came here, they joined the Ku Klux Klan, and they joined that effort of suppressing the freed slaves. What the immigrants could have and should have done, but they didn't know any better, they should have said, wait a minute, this is not the America I come from. I'm leaving a land of oppression, a land where my government puts people down and robs us of our freedom. I come here and I see this and I'm a part of this. I cannot associate myself with this any longer. I love this country, but I want this country to be what it says it's to be. I'm going to speak up about this and say, hey, America, this is not what I came here for. And unfortunately, sir, because that did not happen, the Jim Crow laws of racial segregation lasted for 99 years, and finally they lifted them in 1964. But the damage was done.
Yeah.
The damage was done.
Ted, let me say something, Ted.
Now, just to finish this off.
Yes.
And now, what the immigrant people are doing in this country, on the political right and left, is they are allowing foreigners to come into this country illegally. What you said it earlier, it's an invasion, and they're coming in the name of my people's civil rights, and they're now saying that their babies who are born here are citizens based on the 14th Amendment, which is my birth certificate, and we are about to be destroyed. And if we do not rise up as a nation and fix this, God will destroy the United States of America.
I understand what you're saying. And by the way, the 14th Amendment, unfortunately, you don't even need to be a lawyer to read it. I mean, the jurisdiction of thereof, even a wop like myself that does not really much, never study the English, I understand that. The problem is this is what exactly they're using it. They need to destroy the fiber of this republic, having the opportunity, giving the opportunity to an unlimited number of people coming from normally countries that they don't understand the basic foundation of a republic, where people are supposed to have inalienable rights. Instead, we are getting people from democracies, mostly socialist democracies, where people, the mob, can be directed using the brainwashing of the media for an agenda. The agenda is destruction of freedom, liberty, and property rights, of course, individual rights. So this is part of the plan. I have just a little observation, and I'm sure that probably we have maybe I don't say difference of opinion. I'm just been studying history from like almost an external person, because I wasn't born here. I never really lived the drama that you're going through as a black American or as a part of this country with this racial issue. I was in Italy all my when I grew up. But when I was studying history, when I came here, and I tried to go a little deeper than just what the history book gave me, the issue of the Civil War, according to my learning experience, it wasn't just about racism. Because what I see, there was a lot of big economics dispute. There was a lot of big economic warfare. And also there was also a big important thing. There was about state rights. But don't get me wrong, I understand that the slavery was alive and well. The only thing is, I don't think that was the only reason. Because unfortunately, after the Civil War was won by a president that Lincoln supposedly is supposed to be advocating for freeing the slave, I see that, like you said before, I mean, Rosa Parks was still, get arrested, so many years later. So things that really didn't change till recently. But regardless, we have a problem. You're right. We got to start to understand that right now, I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're orange. We are all potential slaves because we are losing these rights, and we are going to become losing also this republic, all of us. And
well, let me share with you something.
Yes, please.
Yes, the Civil War on the surface started out based on economics, and the economics was the North was an industrial center. Okay, the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
The South was agrarian, agricultural society, and they needed the slaves, and slavery in the South was a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the North also benefited from it because, as quiet as people want to say, well, the North wasn't involved. Yes, the North was involved because they were buying textiles and so forth from the South. Okay, all that cotton was king, tobacco, and rice. States' rights was, we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as the Declaration of Independence declares. And our happiness is these slaves. If you take away our slaves, we lose our happiness. And as a state, we have a right to fight you. Okay? That's the bottom line. That's the truth, right? But then, so they went to war with each other. And I was just in Charleston, South Carolina a couple of days ago, where the war actually started, doing some research down there.
Yes.
And the war started, and no one wanted to admit that it was slavery. Well, finally, Abraham Lincoln, let me read something to you, what he said in the second inaugural address. He said, both parties deprecated the war One of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish, and the war came. 1/8 of the whole population were colored slaves, not distributed generally over the Union, but localized in the southern part of it. These slaves constituted a peculiar and powerful interest. All knew that this interest was somehow the cause of the war. You see, so America came to that understanding, and see what we have forgotten in this country. That's why I said you need to understand the Civil War. Our country no longer has a moral backbone to do the truth and to enforce our laws. One of the things that the illegal aliens say, particularly coming from the Hispanic Latino community from south of the border, these people say to the traditional white Anglo-English-speaking people who run the country, the dominant race, they say, we're allowed to come into your country illegally. And the white man in this country says, no, you're not. You're breaking the law. You're breaking international law. You can't do that in any country. We can't do that in Mexico or Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua. And they say, well, you are a racist. And the white man goes, really? Well, how am I a racist? I'm just telling you, this is the law. And they say, well, look at my skin color.
What
you are treating me the way, look at my skin color. You are treating me the way you treat the blacks. And so the white man, who is already suffering from a long, extended guilt complex, caves in because he knows that his business with the blacks is not yet finished in this country. So he gives in and lets these guys come along. The Muslims come here, and they say, I can pray 5 times a day. I can do whatever I want to do. I know you guys are scared of us. You're supposed to be scared of us. We're going to do what we want to do. And the white man says in this country, no, you cannot do that. That would, if you put up a loudspeaker and you pray 5 times a day, you're going to disturb the Christians and the Jews and the Hindus and other people. And the Muslim says, then you are a racist, white man. And the white man says, well, how am I a racist? I'm just defending what's right here. He says, well, look at my skin color. I'm from the Middle East, and I'm a minority. And the illegal aliens from south of the border says, we're a minority, and you're treating us like you treat the blacks. And so the white man cowers. I'm trying to get this country who call them, at least those who call themselves patriots. If you want to defeat these invaders, you must recognize that those 740,000 young, innocent white boys, north and south, died for this issue. And if you allow for the illegal aliens to come in here and take that from the blacks, for which those 740,000 innocent white boys gave their lives for, then you'll lose the country. But if you stand up to the illegal aliens, you stand up to the Muslims, no matter what they call you, you say, I am fighting for the memory of those boys who died in the Civil War, that this union might exist, that you want to come here and live in, enjoy, and destroy. You do that, we win the fight. Because the Hispanics, the Latinos, the Muslims, the Asians, no one can argue with the fact that you're not just defending black people, you're defending those boys who died in that war because of black people. You get the moral high ground. And this is what our leaders are lacking. Mr. Trump lacks it. All the leaders in the Republicans, they all lack this understanding.
I understand. Now, this is important. I wanted to hear your opinion on this issue. And I have another question, a couple of things, first of all. First of all, there's been a big debate, and there was this big propaganda, in my opinion, about the removal of the Confederate flag. From somebody from like myself, that probably, I didn't live in firsthand this. For me, that was an historical flag that has nothing to do anymore with racism. It's about history of this country. People may not agree or not, but I don't think the removal was right. What is your position as a black man, as black American, about the removal, for example, in the state, I think, of Georgia, wherever it was, I forgot, maybe West Virginia.
It was in Charleston, South Carolina.
South Carolina, South Carolina. But, all this propaganda, especially also through the commercial businesses, that Amazon removed all these flags. You couldn't buy anymore the flag. What do you think about that? What is your position on that issue?
I think it was horrible. It was horrible because it is history. It's a history we should never forget.
Exactly.
In fact, some of these people want to tear down the statues and rename streets. And if you do that, you need to also then tear down the Washington Monument, change the name of Washington, D.C., because George Washington actually held slaves, 100-some slaves he had. Thomas Jefferson's memorial will have to be destroyed. People who think in that logic are not well.
No, I understand.
Maybe there's a problem with the flag flying over the state property. Maybe, I don't know. But people should not try to villainize the Confederate flag. That flag was the flag of patriotic young white boys who was fighting for the Declaration of Independence and for this country. They may have been wrong,
and they were also
but they
black.
weren't fighting to keep slavery. They were not fighting to keep slavery.
And they were also black
for their country, the state rights.
Ted, they were also black people, black boys that were fighting in the battle. I mean, not just
there were
white.
Black boys who were fighting also in the Southern Confederacy as well.
Yeah, on both sides,
yes.
But, this is my humble opinion, try to understand, coming from another country, all this, struggle that started since the beginning. I studied a little bit of history, and I realized that, unfortunately, humanity, no matter which civilization, they always been trying. There is always somebody that wants to try to dominate another one. I don't care if they're the Romans or the Greeks or the Egyptians. Slavery is started since the beginning of humanity. There was always some bastard out there that had more power, had more guns or more weapons, and wanted to use this force to coerce somebody else. And unfortunately, this has been part of human condition. People forget, coming from, at least for what I studied, wasn't just an American problem, At least in America was addressed for the first time even in a document that, of course, wasn't fulfilled, like you said, the Declaration of Independence, they all men are created equal. Yeah, they put it in writing, but they could not complete it all the way they wanted it, because otherwise this union would never did happen. But at the same time, people forget that meanwhile, around the world, like, for example, even right now, in many Muslim countries, slavery is still okay. So don't get me wrong, what happened to America and to the black people, I think it was terrible. But at the same time, this is also happened before to white people, like the Irish slave, and happened, of course, to other civilizations. So it is not just an American problem. I think it's been a human race problem since the beginning. And, of course, in America was probably the most evident, because we had the Declaration of Independence and a constitution that almost was conflicting all these principles. But at the same time, also, that's why I always say, the point is, when you become weak, when you are disarmed, that's exactly when you allow somebody else to rule you. That's why I say one thing in my humble experience in this country. Slaves are never armed. I am not a slave. That's the bottom line. And that's why I think all these gun laws that we have in now today to face as gun restrictions, they were all some sort of almost a consequence of gun laws that were trying to limit the right of black people to defend themselves. What do you think about...
That was the original reason for getting rid of the guns, absolutely.
Yes, I mean, as a black person, you know that the first people they wanted to target after the Civil War, even before, I mean, they didn't want to have black people with guns. That would be very bad, like the Romans. If you were a slave under the Roman Empire, you cannot have gun unless the master give it to you just for the purpose to maybe go fight somebody else, and then you come back, the gun goes back into the armory. So what do you think about this? The fact that the slavery problem, it is not just an American problem, it's a human race problem. Don't you think that?
Yes, that is absolutely true. In fact, it's not even a racial problem. And this particular round of slavery proves that. However, the difference between the kind of slavery that happened in the United States, the kind of slavery that happened in the United States was quite a bit different than the slavery that the world has experienced throughout history. And we were more like a living human property. We were considered less than human. There was a whole psychology that went with it. And you see today that black people, these former slaves or descendants of slaves, they're still going through a very deep psychosis around what happened to them generations ago. But however, this is interesting too, though. There's a myth out there that the white people in this country, the Jews and the Christians, from Spain and Portugal, beginning with them, and then the British and the other European countries, that they invaded Africa, captured these people, and enslaved them. That is not true at all. Mm-hmm. What happened was that Muslims had been enslaving us and shipping us out to the Middle East through the Sahara Desert. They saved between 18 to 30 million Africans were marched across the Sahara Desert into the Arab and Middle Eastern countries, and that 70% of the people died in the desert. Horrible thing. Then, and that was from 700 AD to 1400 AD. And then in 1400 AD, over on the west coast of Africa, the Muslims, along with the African leaders and merchants, began to ship slaves, put them on the slave ports, and put them on the ships to send them over to the Americas. Now, that's like 13 million people there.
Wow.
The Muslims were involved. Black people had a direct hand in that, not white people. The mistake that the white Christians and Jews made was they disobeyed the Bible and fell for the love of money. They saw profit, and they bought slaves. And, of course, now, generations later, you're paying for that mistake. However, the beautiful thing about the white Americans, more than any other people in the history of the world, this is the first time that a people went to war with itself over the existence of another people. You understand that? That is a very noble thing that they did.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. There's been revolutionary wars. There's been wars for slaves fought to free themselves. There's been all kinds of different wars. But never has there been such a war as that. In fact, the 740,000 that died in that war, it is more than all the wars that America has fought combined.
Yes.
That's how important this point is. That's why I said to you, if you're going to fight illegal immigration, you're going to fight the Muslims, you're going to make the socialists get out, you're going to make the elected officials obey the law and enforce the law, you've got to understand the purpose of the Civil War.
Ted, I have a question for you. Try to have this. I like this conversation with you. First of all, it seems like a stupid question, but I like to ask: who created the federal government? I mean, according to your experience and to history.
What do you mean? Who created the federal government?
I mean, it's almost a stupid question, but I was going to make a point. The point is the states, the independent colonies, sat down, and they created the federal government.
Federal government, right?
Perfect. So it's like they are let's say the masters. You want to use this in this word, the slave master. Okay, they were the masters.
Right.
They were the creators. Okay.
Right.
So the federal government was a child of these 13 colonies.
Right.
Now they had to sit down, and by free will, they decided to join the union. Correct. And that was by free will.
Well, they created the union.
Exactly. They created the union. Then, of course, we have different states in the future. In history, they joined the 50 states. That's fine. Now, they had, according to what I studied, always that right as creators to leave the union anytime they wanted. Is that true or not? Is that correct?
No, I don't think so. No, that's why they created the union. That's why they created the federal government, to keep them together. Otherwise, you'd have chaos. You'd have 50 independent states. It looked like Europe, frankly, and it can't work. And we've seen Europe can't work like that. The only reason why Europe has survived their divisiveness over there is because the United States, after World War II, went over there and rebuilt the whole country, saved it, and rebuilt the whole thing.
Ted, I have only one question. Focusing on this, it sounds to me like something based on force and coercion. After all, if I want to join something because I'm going to be led by example or by, the principle that we believe. For example, right now, let's say the state of Virginia, okay, was one of the founders of the union of this.
Right.
And at that point, they realize, what? Sorry, this is something that I don't want to be part, because the principle that you have of, let's say, the Republican principle, anything, I just disagree. So at the point, what I found disturbing, in my opinion, when we have to keep people together, not by example or by living the proof of the principles that we started and created this republic, but then only by coercion. And the same things could be today. At this point, there is no more free will. And if there is no free will, I call this tyranny. Is this coming from outsider? I'm not trying to say what is right or what is wrong, but I never want to be led by coercion, especially when the point is, if I'm an independent sovereign state, and I'm not bothering anybody else, I should be left to even have the free will to make
but
mistakes.
you're not allowed to. But law is law. You cannot have anarchy. We are not civilized enough as human beings to live in anarchy. Anarchy is the best way to live, but we're not civilized enough. So therefore, we have the law. It works like the Damocles sword. The law will not interfere in your daily concourse of life unless you begin to become uncivil. Then you, of your own volition, bring the law.
Ted.
It's like in the black community. Okay, we don't want the police to come into the community, right? Well, and I tell them, if you don't want the police to come into the community, stop doing the uncivil behavior towards one another that draws the police. So the founding fathers of the 13 colonies, clearly they understood we need a central government.
Okay.
We need a policeman in our midst. We need someone like that. And if it wasn't for the federal government, I would still be a slave.
No, I understand that, but the point is another one, though. Let's say the state of Texas, the former Republic of Texas, okay? I read the Constitution. I read also the agreement. When they joined the Union, they still have the right to succeed if they want to. That was part of a law. That's a contract. How do
well,
you...
they do not. Obviously, they do not have the right to succeed because, I mean, they can try if they want to, but it's not going to work.
Because there is force and coercion.
You got to remember, and the first... And if you do succeed, what you're saying is to hell with the slave people.
No, forget about the slaves. Now I'm talking about just we're even beyond the slaves issue.
I know, but what I'm saying to you, see, all these things are interlocked. It's like a spider web. If you pull on one strand, the whole web moves. It's all interlocked. It's contiguous. Texas can't pull out. If Texas pulls out, it destroys me. You see, I am. More than a citizen of California or Georgia or Texas or Arizona, I, being a descendant of the slaves, I am a federal citizen. I am a citizen of the federal government. Okay. Therefore, I can go to any state without that state oppressing me in any kind of way. You see, go back to the 14th Amendment, because that's the center of this whole debate. The 14th Amendment, let me get it for you right quick here. The 14th Amendment says that all persons, Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That is speaking specifically to the freed slaves, no one else. Jurisdiction. When the colonies were under British rule, we, as living human property, was under the jurisdiction of England and the British Crown and the English Crown. We were their living human property. When the United States came into existence, we automatically, more than any other people in the country, because of the way we came into the country, we were automatically transferred into the jurisdiction of the United States. Therefore, to this day, because of our socioeconomic political condition in the country, we are still under that special jurisdiction and protection of the federal government of the United States.
Okay.
That's why when people say they want to get rid of the 14th Amendment or alter the 14th Amendment, that is a direct attack upon me and my people, because that is our birth certificate.
Well, this is, I like this show because, as I said, in this show, when I bring guests, I have, first of all, completely freedom of speech and everything. We don't need to agree on everything. And even, of course, there's a lot of things that I agree with my friend Ted Ace. On this issue, almost by accident, I started to touch it, and I'm very glad, because there's something that, we have a little bit difference of opinion. My humble way I studied history, for me, the moment that the 14th Amendment was created was almost like, now, we all slaves. We all became slaves and subject of the United States. We used to be this United States in our Constitution. Instead, when we go back now to the 14th Amendment, we go back to a corporate America that is being recreated with a different congressional act, and they call it the United States. As I said, I understand every state have different laws. I look at this like, the states the independent sovereign states that also we have in the Bill of Rights, in the 10th Amendment, the state has that power in of independent, in the sense that they can have power and authority beside the laws or beside the constitution in the Constitution. My point is one, though. When we have a situation of coercion and force, like for example, we were talking about Texas, the Republic of Texas, where exactly, and I know because I've been studying that part, when they joined the Union, they had their right to succeed. Now, probably, as you say, you're right, with the coercion of, after the example of Abraham Lincoln, nobody can succeed anymore. Even there was the right, even during the colonies, by the way, according to different historians, the 13 colonies, the 13 states had the right to succeed because they created their union and they were able to live if they wanted to. This is not the mafia. It's supposed to be some sort of a free will.
But you see, again, once again, that whole philosophy, where you're coming from, that is the personal American dream ideal that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. That's where I want to live the way I want to live, and I don't want no one to tell me how to live. That is not the American dream. You got it mixed up. Have you ever studied, folks? Have you ever looked at the Civil Rights Act of 1866, ratified in 1868, with the 10 sections? Have you looked at that at all, sir?
Not recently, but I can go back. Tell me.
You need to go back. When you go to my website,
yes,
you'll see it there, tedhayes.us. Mm-hmm. Scroll down, and you'll see all my positions on immigration, and I talk about this very point. And I point out something called the Civil Rights Act of 1866, 1868.
Okay.
The Civil Rights, that tells you what the 14th Amendment actually is and why it exists. In fact, the existence of the United States will depend on how we understand the 14th Amendment. If we flub it up and lose it, then, ladies and gentlemen, the America that you came here for will no longer exist. It'll be something else. It may be called the United States, but it will no longer exist. In fact, I'd give it 3 years before the United States, or these United States, whatever you want to call it, these several states will come to an end.
Mm-hmm. But right now, I don't think it's working. When we have a centralized power, like for example, we've been having more and more the last 100 years, and there is no more the 10th Amendment that I think is very important to keep at least the opportunity to have different states with more freedoms. Because
do you know how that happened?
Yeah.
But do you understand how we got big government?
Tell
me.
You know
why it happened?
Please, go ahead, please, Ted.
The reason that we have big government was the Civil War, was slavery, was because of slavery. The states fought, half the states, in fact, 47 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence owned slaves. Okay, 47 of the 56 owned slaves. So the country was born divided, a house divided against itself, as Abraham Lincoln aptly pointed out. These people, they did not want to. Boy, I lost my train of thought, sir. I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem.
With that.
No problem.
Oh my gosh, I cannot stand that. Oh, I know, big government. So the country was divided, and in order to end this thing, we had to have a big government, and it was under the dictator. That's what he was, Abraham Lincoln. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest government program ever. Okay. Now, the slaves needed help, so big government said, "We're going to put up the Reconstruction. We're going to set the South down. We're going to put the Union soldiers down there to keep the white people off the black people. We're going to give black people jobs and housing, and we're going to put them in government positions and so forth."
Sounds like Obama to me.
Yes, what it was. Okay.
Sounds like Obama.
Then, when the federal government backed off of doing its duty according to the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment, when it failed to continue to do its duty to protect the freed slaves, the southern states, using states' rights, began to write Jim Crow, Black Code, racist laws against the freed states. Now, remember, these are immigrant people who are doing this, okay? That lasted for 99 years until 1964. When 1964 came in, the big deal was the Civil Rights Act. And we were told it was to bring justice, jobs, and tear down the walls of segregation and so forth. Well, actually, what that was, it was a socialist pill in disguise. Is what that was. That's how, see, Dr. King, bless his heart, meant well, but did not know what he was doing. That's why he began to listen to the communists and to the socialists, because he himself, being a wealthy black man, did not know what poverty was. And so when he tried to address poverty, he didn't have any answers. If you notice, listen to Dr. King's speeches. He's great. He's a great orator. He's a great prophet. He's a great poet. He was great in criticizing what was wrong and dreaming about what we'd all like to have. But if you ask him how, he didn't have a clue. So when they sat down with Lyndon Johnson and those crafty Democrats, they told King, the socialists said, we will give you government programs, housing, welfare. You know the story, right? And what that did was that opened the floodgate for the federal government to go beyond what it was supposed to do, but all the while hiding behind black people, saying we're doing this for black people, when they weren't doing it for black people.
Ted, I have a question for you.
That's how big government came. And that's another thing, sir.
Yes.
The reason why we black people continue to vote 100%, nearly 100%, for the Democrats, the big government, because that's all we've ever known is big government. It was big government that got us out of slavery.
Question.
It was big government.
I have a question for you. Who owns the business, your private business? Let's say you have a little business. Who owns, you or the government?
You own that business.
Okay, so good. I like that because I feel the same. Supposed to be, so, it's the fruit of our work, of our, experience.
Yeah, you own that business.
Our risk, fine. So as a free human being, when you own something, you should have the freedom to decide how you want to use it, right?
Right.
So, for example, let's say, and I have nothing, I want to say straight what I'm going to, okay? It's about the gay issue. And I don't have anything, honestly, it's not on my business. They don't do it in front of my face. I don't care. But that's just me speaking, of course. But if somebody comes to my business, somebody comes to your business, okay? And they demand that you need to provide a service against your will. And I don't care if it's because that person is a gay or not. But in this case, let's say he's a gay, okay? You don't like it. For moral reason, you don't want to do a freaking cake for them, okay? That's your personal belief. You think the government should have the force, the right to coerce you to offer that service?
In that matter, in that particular matter, no. But in the matter when we black folks would try to go into a restaurant and they said the law says blacks are not allowed, that's when the federal government has to step in and say, no, because now you are denying fellow Americans life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not because of choice of sexuality, but because of the way they were born.
What's about
the gays? What the gays have done is they, like the illegal aliens and like the Muslims and like white wealthy women, they've always hid behind black people to justify their cause.
I have a question though, and honestly, I have no problem with anybody. I don't care about if you're gay. I don't care if you're black, orange, or if you're a WAP, okay? I mean, for me, it's about human being. That's the bottom line. That's me, of course. But my point is another. If I want to use the logic, if that's really my business, okay, I'm just going there by philosophical, almost just logic, okay? If that's my business, that means I am not a slave. Nobody should be force me to the way I want to make money or lose money. It's my right. I
agree with you.
I can say, you know what? I don't care if you're a white man. Just I don't like your smell. I don't like your face. I don't like to serve you, period, because I'm not a slave. This is my business. And I understand what happened in the past because I wasn't here. I was even born around that time. But I read, I watched, and I tried to document myself. I understand that there were times in history, even if you were in black, even if you were just maybe in Irish, they didn't want to serve you. Or maybe if you were an Italian, they didn't want to serve you. It wasn't just about being black. Of course, black, they got the most of it. But the point is, at the same time, as my humble opinion, I really think that... If I want to go to be, I am the boss of my own business and the government is not my master, I should have the right to refuse service to even the Pope. If the Pope comes to my business, I don't want to give him service.
But in this country, sir, in this country, that freedom that you experienced, that was paid for by people before you came.
I understand.
And that freedom has a moral cost to that.
But what's about the gay? I mean, let's use the logic.
And it's based around what happened with chattel slavery.
But what's about the gays? At this point, using your logic, I think even the gays should have the right to be having that cake, if you like it or not.
Gays should, no, because if they can argue it on merit, great. They could not argue that on merit. They had to argue it behind civil rights. They don't have that. They don't have that road. If they could argue it on their own merit, fine. But you never hear them argue on their own merit. And therefore, if someone says, I cannot support this because of your immoral behavior, they have a right. I believe they have a right.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was a gay person, by the way,
Yes,
I would want some heterosexual to fix my cake. They may spit in it.
I agree with you. We're just talking about, just in academic way. That's the bottom line. We're just trying to use logic and trying to see, where things. This is not about, gay. It's not about black. It's not about being right or wrong.
But it is.
I like to have an academic.
Sir,
Yes, go ahead.
In this country, as I said to you again from the beginning of our conversation,
Mm-hmm.
if you really want to understand America, you must understand the Civil War and what that was about. You must understand the 14th Amendment. That's when you get clear. Until then, it's every man for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's my American dream. It's my freedom for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I do what I want to do. The federal government can't tell me what to do. No one can tell me what to do.
Okay, what do you think about Obamacare? The federal government tells you now that you must be forced to buy a product, in this case, a health insurance, even if you don't have the money. You gotta buy the product, otherwise you pay a fine.
That I disagree with.
Okay, why you?
That I disagree with.
Why?
The only thing that I see where the federal government can interject itself, according to the Constitution now, is the matter of chattel slavery and its aftermath, black people. Apart from that, Feds got nothing else to say here.
Okay,
They have nothing else to say. All the Fed's supposed to do is defend the country from invasion, which they're not doing,
Mm-hmm.
okay? They're supposed to see to it that we have a level playing field for all citizens to participate, period. But it also referees, for example, gays. It said no gays. Sorry, you cannot hide behind black people. No, rich women, you can't hide behind black minorities. You can't hide behind black people. That is something sacred and different and apart. You got an argument with me? Argue it on your merits.
Mm-hmm. Question now.
And
I understand what you're saying. I want to just go to another topic. I understand. This is you made your point clear. I understand that. Now, I would like to go back to what's happening right now in America. You talk, you're an advocate of the homeless. You live between them. Meanwhile, we have the federal government spending billions of dollars. I think giving $1,000 for each new refugee coming from Syria. Even we know that it's not just Syria. Probably it's other countries. We have no idea. What do you think about this Obama's proposal to bring more than 100,000 refugees from everywhere and giving them also, of course, all the extorted tax dollar that the federal government is so, benevolently taking from us? What is your opinion as a black American and also a homeless person?
I think he's wrong. I think he's absolutely wrong about that. And Donald Trump is right about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the word refugee, the first people to be considered refugees were the free slaves in this country. Let me read you something
Mm-hmm.
from the Civil Rights Act of 1866, where it talks about enforcing this law. It says here that and if any suit or prosecution, civil or criminal, has been or shall be commenced in any state court against any such person for any cause whatsoever, or against any officer, civil or military, or other persons for any arrest or imprisonment, trespasses or wrongs done or committed by virtue or under the color of authority derived from this act, which is to hurt black folks, or the act of the free slaves, or the act of establishing a bureau for the relief of freedmen and refugees.
Mm-hmm.
We are the American refugees.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we the American refugees? Because we have not yet, as a people, a talented tenth has achieved it, but as a people, while we are technically United States citizens, we are not enjoying and experiencing a citizenship that the immigrant people of this country are experiencing. Therefore, because of our socioeconomic state, we are still under the federal protection as refugees. Therefore, Mr. President, which it speaks to the president 3 times in this section, has her number one job is to protect the refugees. Because if you protect the refugees, you will automatically protect the rest of the nation. See, he has no business doing that.
Okay,
So I'm with you.
very good. Okay, listen, the last question I have, because I watched the documentary really woke me up was the 4th of July 1996 in front of the federal building in Los Angeles where American people, they were exercising the First Amendment and they were completely assaulted by hordes of illegal aliens while the police, they were doing nothing. They were turning the other side. And that video is out there and I will post it again. That was 1996. Now we are 2015. You live in Los Angeles. How things are going right now? Did they improve? Did they get worse? How are we getting now with the integration or with these hordes of people coming from south of the border?
Things are worse, and as I said, we got about 3 years before we be declared the end of the United States. Things are worse, and the only way you're going to stop it, you got to remember, these guys used a moral cause. They say, you're hurting us. You are racist. You're separating our families. We have children. We just want a better lifestyle. How can you be that way towards us? You see, Abraham Lincoln, when he understood what this country was about and what God thought about America, he gained the moral fortitude. He knew he had to hurt the nation in order to save the nation. And the only reason he was able to do that was because he knew he had the moral high ground for what he was doing. And we American citizens have to understand what Abraham Lincoln had. He had the moral high ground to hurt. We need to have the moral high ground to say to these people, so what? Your families are disrupted. So what? You got to go back to Mexico where you may die. So what? Whatever, you have to go. Why? Because your presence here is making a mockery of the 740,000 young, innocent white boys who gave their lives for these black people. And we're not going to allow you to take from these black people what they gave them. Go. And they can't argue with that, and they'll have to go. That's how you deal with it. There is no other way to deal with it.
Perfect. And
you can argue with them all day long, and they're going to play the race card. They're going to play the pity card. They're going to show you their babies, all of that, and you'll capitulate. But if you understand what this is, you speak this way, they'll leave you alone.
Ted,
that's why the Hispanic Latino leadership refuses to have a conversation with me.
Yes, Ted, please, time is gone, but I really appreciate what you said. This is a great exchange of ideas. I like to learn, and I like also to share what we feel from each other. This is great. You've been an inspiration, even if I don't agree with everything we do. I think you're a great guy. No, I really do, because, and this is the opportunity to be in America, to learn from each other, to experience each other, to challenge each other.
I respect you for coming correctly the way the government has set it up. You did right. And what you immigrant guys need to do, you need to form a movement and have a big march and rally as immigrants, reaching immigrants, and you need to tell these guys you cannot get in front of the line here. Go back and stand in line.
Ted, give your website. Give your website. I got to close. I got a commercial coming. Give your website.
TedHayes.us. Go there and you'll find everything else that I do.
Perfect, guys. Don't go away. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Lucas Zanna. Don't go away.
Bye, Lucas.
A poet, a rifleman,
I'm not afraid.
and a constitutional activist.
I'm not afraid.
Italian by birth,
I'm not afraid.
American by choice. Gianluca Zanna.
I'm not afraid.
And his new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom. 16 powerful songs on one CD from the heart of a patriot. For download or to order the CD, go to www.lovegunsfreedom.com. That's www.lovegunsfreedom.com